Good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Tuvalu. Now, this is just one of the islands in Tuvalu. There are 9 islands total. This one is its capital island, Funafuti. And as you can see, it's pretty small. It is an atoll, which is a coral island in the shape of a ring with a big lagoon in the middle. Over here is the capital city of Funafuti, and as you can see, it has a little airstrip. And not much else to tell about this island. There's not much there. So we're actually going to look at another map so I can show you all of the other islands in Tuvalu. Alright, we're going to start zoomed out first so I can show you where Tuvalu is located in the world. You can see down here is Fiji, Vanuatu, and the Solomon Islands. For more of a perspective, let me slide my atlas over carefully. And over here you can see Australia, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, all of that. So that is where we are located. Let me slide this back and I'll zoom this in so we can look a little closer at Tuvalu. So like I said, Tuvalu is a series of 9 different islands, and if I lean over carefully, I can tell you their names. We have Nanumea, Nanumanga, Niutau, Nui, Vaitupu, Nukufetau, Funafuti, which was the one we looked at before. We have Nukulele and Nulakita. Most of the islands are atolls, except for a few. Nanumanga and Niutau and Nukulakita, which I just lost, it's the southernmost one, are just regular reef islands, and the rest are atolls. The difference being, well, okay, so imagine an underwater volcano erupts and forms an island, right? Over time, coral will grow around that volcanic island, and over time the island sinks back down into the sea. So the islands that are majority coral with still some land in the middle is a coral island, but the ones where the land has sunk all the way back under the water and the coral remains is an atoll. So that's mainly what Tuvalu comprises of. Tuvalu is a very flat country. The highest point is on Nulakita, and it's only 4.6 meters or 15 feet high. There's no rivers, no actual lakes other than the lagoons, things like that. And obviously no mountains or hills to speak of, just beautiful, tropical, lovely little islands. So I'll go over history and then I'll grab my tablet so I can show you some fantastic pictures of Tuvalu and give you a better sense of what this place looks like, because this is literally the best map that I own of Tuvalu. So Tuvalu was first settled by the Polynesians, who spread out all over this area starting around 3,000 years ago or so, and they inhabited 8 of the 9 islands. So the name Tuvalu means 8 standing together. So that's why even though there's technically 9 islands, it's named after the 8 that were first inhabited. And not much is known about the early settlement of Tuvalu. There are some oral stories of some attempted invasions. It's believed that the Tongans, who are down that way, attempted to invade Niutau up here in the 15th and 16th centuries. And it's believed that the Micronesians from Kiribati, which is just over here, you can see the Phoenix Islands, that's part of Kiribati. You can kind of see the Kiri in Kiribati. They attempted to invade Nui in the 17th century, but they were also defeated. That's pretty much all of the actual history we have of Tuvalu. That's not like mythology or lore, things like that. But again, that's all an oral history. It's just from word of mouth. There's obviously no written documentation of these things happening. So the first Europeans to sight the island came by on January 16th, 1568. And it was a Spanish ship, and they made contact but couldn't land. The coral makes it kind of hard to land big old ships. And over the years between the 16th and 19th centuries, many different ships passed by and charted the islands and named them their own names. It was mostly the Spanish at first. You know, the Philippines are just over there. Eventually the British, the Americans, and some Russians even came by and charted the islands. And so lots of different names were thrown around for the different islands, but the one that stuck was made in 1819 by an American, and it was named the Ellis Islands. And not like Ellis Island like in New York City, it's Ellice, Ellis. The cargo ship that was sailing by was owned by a man named Ellis, so the guy in charge of the ship named him after the guy whose cargo he was towing around. And yeah, that's the name that really stuck on like maps and things like that. Eventually, starting in 1821, some American whalers started to establish shore camps. They could come ashore and clean the whale blubber and things like that. And starting in 1862, some Peruvians actually came by this area and committed what's known as blackbirding, which was a really devastating thing that happened all throughout like Polynesia, Micronesia, where they were told like these people would land on the islands and say, hey, we've got a business opportunity for you. You can come work on our island. We'll give you housing, we'll give you food, and you can work this job, make some money. It'll be great. And the people there are like, yeah, totally. So they get on the ship, not realizing that they're being kidnapped and used as slaves for the rest of their lives. That happened between, like I said, 1862 and 1863. It's believed that hundreds of people were kidnapped off the islands of Tuvalu, not to mention many, many others all throughout this area. It was really devastating. In 1861, a deacon who was sailing from, I want to say it was Samoa, got lost at sea for 8 weeks and wound up washing up on the shores of Tuvalu on Ukulele. And he eventually would establish the Church of Tuvalu, and many other missionaries, mainly Anglican ones, would come over and build churches and preach Christianity. So that's the predominant religion in Tuvalu today, although there are many others represented, of course. In 1865, a few German companies came into the area. I mentioned this before in another video. Which one was it? Probably Kiribati or some other, like the last island I covered in this area. But, you know, Germany came late into the colonization game because they were formed way later than all the other major European powers. So there wasn't much land left to colonize. So they went for what's known as Oceania today and started to buy up land and properties and form plantations and trading businesses on many of the islands out here. Tuvalu doesn't really have a lot of space, as you saw on the map over there. That's the largest island in Tuvalu. So there were just trading companies established, and they mainly traded in copra, which is made from coconuts. It's like the skin of the coconut. And it was not very profitable. In fact, at one point, the island of Vaitupu was going to be taken in by German debt collectors because they were super in debt. And they managed to pay it off and save the island. And that's now a national holiday. Every November 25th, they celebrate Happy Day. It's called, translated into English, it's called Happy Day, which is a great name for a holiday to celebrate an island not being seized by debt collectors. So eventually the German companies in this area went bankrupt, and they were eventually taken over by new companies coming out of New Zealand. And eventually, in 1878, Germany and Britain have all of their interests in this part of the world, so they decide to divide up everything into spheres of influence. Germany actually got a lot, but Tuvalu came under the British sphere of influence. It was a protectorate from 1892 to 1916. Didn't really do much with that area other than just like trading coconuts and basic tropical crops like that. And they also conducted science experiments on the coral reefs. They dug like holes in the coral trying to study them. Very bizarre. Some of the holes are still there today. And then in 1916 they established the Gilbert and Ellice Islands colony. So the Gilbert Islands was what Kiribati was known as. And obviously Tuvalu was still the Ellice Islands. And the British didn't really do much with them. Like I said, it's, just doing what they could economically with the islands. And then World War II happens. The Japanese invade the Gilbert Islands. And the Ellice Islands are right next door. So the Americans came by. They came here to Funafuti and built the airstrip that's still used today as the airport, and launched a lot of attacks against the Japanese from the islands. There are actually lots of really interesting naval battles that launched out of the islands here in Funafuti and fought back against the Japanese. And then, of course, the Americans left. They took a lot of resources as they were here, and leaving not much left for the people here. But anyway, it's recovered from that. And once independence talks started to happen across the British Empire, Tuvalu was eventually granted its independence, I should say, on October 1st, 1978. And I searched high and low for any kind of political anything happening in Tuvalu other than just elections. There's nothing, you guys. There's really nothing in terms of discontent or even like protests. There's absolutely nothing. And I'm gonna link a video in the description that I watched about Tuvalu that made me smile, like a huge smile the whole time. It was a wonderful video that kind of describes the attitude of the people living here. It's all very communal, even across islands. Everything's shared. Everyone's considered family. The population of the islands total is only 10,000. And yeah, so it's not really the kind of place where there would be political upheaval or anything. It's just a very laid-back island paradise in the middle of nowhere. The big issue with Tuvalu, though, is climate change. There's been quite a few cyclones that have devastated Tuvalu. Mainly in 1972, Cyclone Bebe wiped out, I think it was like 90% of the buildings throughout Tuvalu and completely submerged Funafuti. There was another in 2015 called Cyclone Pam, which displaced tons and tons of people, like thousands of people from Tuvalu. Many islands were evacuated, and many people never came back. They never repopulated. So climate change is the big issue. As you saw, Tuvalu is very small, very flat, and it's predicted that, if things are going the way that they're going, Tuvalu will be the first country to be swallowed up by the ocean and submerged and lost forever. So there is a lot of climate activism happening on the islands. The UN has a big presence on Tuvalu, trying to do what they can to keep people in their homes and to save the islands, basically. There's a couple of other island chains throughout the world that are under that kind of pressure, but Tuvalu is predicted to be the first one to go. And that's really, really sad, and we obviously don't want that to happen. The other big news out of Tuvalu is their main source of income. As you've learned in history, their agriculture industry is not very profitable. So their web address is .tv. So a lot of TV channels around the world buy up websites based in Tuvalu so they could have like name of TV show .tv as their website. And they generate like quite a lot of money each year out of leasing those out. So that's the main source of income for Tuvalu as a nation. So with that being said, let's go to my tablet so you can see some beautiful pictures of Tuvalu. So here we are at Tuvalu. So let me zoom out so you can get a better view of where exactly we are in the world. There's Australia, there's Asia up there, and oh, I've lost it. Back to Tuvalu. There we go. It's that tiny. Very hard to find on a map because it's pretty small. And there's a lot of really weird errors on Google Earth. I'll show you as we look through. So here is Tuvalu. So you can see the atoll here, the lagoon in the middle. It's a very beautiful island paradise. Another really good picture of what an atoll looks like. Very lovely place. There's the airstrip. Funafuti. Oh, that's it for this slideshow. So let me go through this so I can show you some of the other islands. Alright, here's Vaitupu. It's a really interesting looking island. So you can see how it's technically an atoll with the lagoon, the coral all around it. Really interesting place, and obviously there's not a lot of like street view or anything in these places. Let me show you the pictures. Little neighborhood here. Oh, a big tree. It's really beautiful. Oh, big church. That's neat. Gorgeous little island. Oh, I like that. The cup. Marshy. Looks like we've grown some rice out here. That's what it looks like, at least. Growing something there. Big old rice fields and beautiful ocean. We're clearing some land here. And yeah, it's just a gorgeous little tropical island paradise. Now over here is Nanumanga. For whatever reason, this slideshow is showing pictures from like Germany or something. This is not in Nanumanga. As you can see, this is one of the few coral islands. So, not an atoll, not, at least it looks like it's on the way to becoming an atoll eventually. But not. And yeah, that's, there's not much to show you on these islands. Google Earth doesn't really offer a lot, but is what it is. Here's another island. Here's New Tao. Another coral island. And not much else here. Let's see. It has a population of 582. And yeah, not very populated country, right? It's still extremely beautiful. And here's Nulakita, which doesn't have any pictures at all, and I'll show you on here again. This is the southernmost island, so it says right there. And there isn't even a picture for Google Earth. Like, this is the best we get. That's it. It says down here that they have a population of 34 because most people had to be evacuated. They have moved to the island from New Tao. Anyway, that's it, And the rest are islands that are in Funafuti. So let's go check out Funafuti a little bit more because it's a really interesting place. So that's one of the islands. Let me close this. So here is Funafuti. Let's start down here. And let's turn on the street view to see if we can't check out some places. But I want to start in the city, which you can easily tell. So there's the big airstrip. So the airport is only used 2 days a week for a few hours at a time. So when it's not being used, it becomes a park. And people go on here and play soccer and volleyball and hang out together. Isn't that neat? It becomes a big party place. But I I want to show you up here because, as you can see, like there's various islands within the island, right? And you can see the ring shape, but it's very broken up, right? So I want to show you what it's like in these little between places. I think there was one over here. I thought there was one over here. Let me find another one. Let's look around. The beautiful coral and all the rocks and everything. Oh, here we go. Ooh, that's an interesting spot. So, here you can see we're at like a low tide. And it's very rainy over there. My goodness. And yeah, so this is what it's mostly like. So you can see the island over there. Island over there. And that's just kind of the in-between. Let me find a shot where you can see the lagoon versus the ocean. I think we should go over to the... maybe over here? Is there any spots over here we can look at? We can see the lagoon and the ocean at the same time. I mean, you can kind of tell, right? The difference in the water there from way high up above. But, it's a little tiny island. Do you think anyone lives there? I don't think anyone lives there. If they do, they're in the trees, I suppose. But yeah, it's very... let's go to the city. Maybe if we go... actually, let's go to the tip. Because I saw a dot up at the... dun, dun, dun. There we go. Did I... oh, I turned Street View off. That'd be helpful. Let's see. There it is. Let's check this out. This is perfect. So we can see the ocean crashing over there. And then if we look over here, we can see the lagoon. Much more peaceful and placid, huh? Than the big ocean crashing over there. Can you see the difference? Very interesting place in the world. You can see some more islands out there making up the atoll. Very, very awesome. It just seems so beautiful. Tuvalu is one of the least visited places in the world, along with Nauru, which is just a bit over there. But, there we are. So they have no tourism industry. There's no tour guides or anything. If you want to come visit, you just kind of have to figure things out for yourself. Which, like I said, there's going to be a video in the description. You can check that out and see a tourist's experience in Tuvalu. But it seems like a really enchanting, wonderful place. And I think it's so important that we preserve it at whatever cost. So I'm going to leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. Tiny dot. And I hope that you have a very good night. Good night.